In Unity, once we've imported in our FBX files, we need to do some configuring before we make them part of prefabs. I'll select my 0303 gallery FBX. These come in with a scale factor set for Maya's centimeters, a scale of 0.01. This is an automatic compensation for leaving the linear units in Maya set to centimeters. And this way, things will scale up 100 times so that they're the right size in the scene. Because we've exported out our meshes in meters, we can set this scale factor to 1 and we'll have the right size. I'll also check Generate Lightmap UVs. What this does in a mesh is generate a second set of UV coordinates that are automatically flattened. And we can use this when we're baking the lighting or pre-calculating the lighting for our game. We have the option in here to import blend shapes and also to generate colliders. Blend shapes then allow us to morph between different models or different states of a model from Maya and are particularly useful for facial animation, for example. There's no blend shapes with these models, so it doesn't really matter if I leave it off or on. However, generating colliders is important. I'm going to make the choice here, because this is such a complex model, to not generate colliders automatically. Checking the Generate Colliders checkbox puts a mesh collider on, using every polygon as a collider. And many of the objects in this gallery are much more efficiently, well, generated with a box collider, where we have the mesh looking correct, but the overall volume of what you can pass through or not is defined by a box or a cylinder or a capsule, for example. I'll scroll down and click Apply, and then repeat this with the other 3 meshes I brought in. I've exported out each of the 3 walls, hex, stagger, and waves, that we'll use as blocking walls that spring up when the player contacts a painting. With each of them set to a scale of 1 and Lightmap UVs on, I'm ready to bring in my textures. I'll go into the Textures folder in the Assets folder first to make sure I import in the right place. Here in Textures, I have 2 ways of importing in the textures I'm going to use. You can import in single assets by right-clicking and choosing Import New Asset. Alternately, you can copy and paste files into this directory, simply using a file explorer and taking a bunch of pieces. I'll import in 1 texture asset and then bring in a whole bunch more by simply copying and pasting. In the Import New Asset dialog, I've browsed into the Modernista Assets folder in Chapter 3. This is my working Maya project I'm simply pulling pieces from. I'll go into Source Images, and this is where I put the textures I'm going to use. There's 2 subdirectories here, Art and Building, that contain the respective textures for each section. I'll go into the Building Textures, and there we can see the different building textures, bricks, normals, waves, and so on. I'll pick Brick C. What I've done here in the naming, and this is an important point in terms of organization, is to put a tag at the end of each name. This way, I know that Bricks C, for example, is the color map for a brick. Screen CS denotes color and specularity. And actually, that specular does double duty as a cutout, so we get a perforated metal screen. There's N for normal, and NH for normal and height, where I've tucked a height map in the alpha channel of that normal for parallax mapping. So the brick really stands out from the wall, even if we're tangent to it in the view. I've named all of my textures this way, so that in looking through a directory, I have a very clear idea of which texture goes in what part of a material. I'll click Import, and those bricks will import in, and I'll be able to deal with them in my inspector. The bricks have imported in, and I can see in the inspector that they came in as a texture. Their wrap mode is set to repeat, and the filter mode, or how do they blur close or in distance, is set to bilinear. I've also got options available for different kinds of compression and different platforms if I need. Finally, in the lower right of the UI, there's a preview window where I can see its maximum size, how it's compressed, and how big it is, 0.7 of a megabyte. I'll bring in the rest of my textures this way, taking in all of them at once by copying and pasting into the Textures folder and allowing Unity to batch import all of those pieces. Then I'll configure them for different platforms and different sizes and get ready to start authoring my game.